good evening to all of you. Thanks for having me here. And I'm here today to talk about this book, The Corporate Athlete, written by Jack Groppel. This book has really helped me a lot in multiple ways. And one of the reasons I could relate to this book, pretty closely was because I myself, as a person, believe a lot in sports, believe a lot in athletics, and I think it absolutely shapes a person. When you think of sports, whether it comes to kids, whether it comes to people like us, I think sports is one area that really shapes you up, teaches you what a failure is, and more than failure, teaches you how to get up, once you have failed, how to bounce back. So resilience, again, a critical part of it. Coming to the topic that we are discussing today, I think well-being is a very critical aspect of human life, and revolves around, I would say, three areas. I mean, if I have to call it out, it would be your mind, body, and soul, which automatically always should ideally work in tandem, should have a symphony around it while they are working. If we are looking at, say, the young adults, I would say, somewhere around 25 years of age, I think they all struggle with peer pressures, always with the fear of, missing out, with particularly these digital natives and millennials that we are looking today. Similarly, when we think of a mid age, I would probably call it as a, not to call it per se mid career crisis, but yeah, mid age crisis, where you have a pressure of career, you have a pressure of performance, you have family responsibilities, you have parents, you have the entire social ecosystem. And probably this is that sector where if I may have to call it out, it's like rukna mana hai. Similarly, the last bracket with where we look at, there is a loss of purpose. You start feeling suddenly left out. You start feeling, I see this a lot with my parents or with old age people. To add on to all of this, the pandemic, which hit us 2 years back, and most of us are aware of it. One of the biggest things that happened to us as part of pandemic was, those blurring lines between your personal and professional life. I myself struggled. I really did not know that what was the time that when I have to stop, and what was the time that when I need to start playing, playing a role at the other place. So there was a time when it was very difficult to shut down, to understand, basically, yeah, this is the time where you need to kind of stop and you need to get on to something else, or switching in between. For us to kind of differentiate, or to kind of segregate these parts, it's extremely important that we bring a balance of mind, body, and soul at various stages or junctures of life. So that is where, when I was undergoing, I would say, these ups and downs, in my life, this book, Corporate Athlete, worked as I don't know whether it should be called as a mother book, or probably a coach book for me, that really helped. And one of the things I could resonate well with it was probably because it revolves a lot around sports, revolves a lot around how athletes train, and how we could bring that kind of training in our lives. It kind of breaks it up into five areas. You have the physical part of it, which definitely plays a critical role. And many times I wonder, is it a healthy body that leads to a healthy mind, or is it a healthy mind that leads to a healthy body? Probably, I mean, they work, again, as I said, probably they work in a complete symphony, and that's what the author, Jack, tries to call out as part of it at multiple places. So physically, how is your endurance? And this is not just to do with your exercise part of it. This is not just to do with it broadly focuses on what is that you engage more in a physical manner. Similarly, an emotional capacity, which I think plays a very, very critical role. For me, if I have to look into myself, I would say my emotional mantra comes out from multiple things. One of those things is, that undivided time, or undivided minutes that I sit with my teenagers and hear their stories. I mean, it works in multiple ways for me. I mean, when I think of that, for me to be going on and remaining connected with my kids. Many a times, what happens that we start thinking that a disengagement is just probably sitting in front of the TV, watching your favorite series, or maybe just surfing the net. I think it is way beyond that. It's something what disengages you from what you're doing in your probably work life. And I'm relating to it more of a work life, because that plays a major part in our lives. Fortunately, unfortunately, once we get into that area, I think it plays a major role in our lives. Similarly is the mental part of it. I think mentally we still do to some extent when it comes to challenges, in terms of how do we kind of put a lot of thrust on mental capacity when we think of a growth mindset, when we think of adaptability, when we think of agility, or when we think of resilience, the power of bouncing back. uh, Probably that is one part of it. And the last but not the least, I think, which again sits very close to my heart, is the spiritual part of it. How much of your time effort, or how much of your a day in a life effort, do you really spiritually connect with your own self? And probably spirituality is not just, it might be for me to go and sit in the temple, to just go sit in silence and watch that deepak. Probably, it might be for someone else, it might be, just to listen to that music that makes them calm down and go into their own zone out, probably for that point in time. It's basically, identifying, I would say, identifying those critical aspects. And as we are going, as we see technology running, as we see digital natives running, I think it's a critical aspect that we bring these four elements in our life. And just double clicking on it with what the author has spoken about, across these five pillars: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. What has touched me the most, in all these five pillars, I would say, has been the recovery part of it. I mean, yeah, we train, we kind of coach, we train, physically, mentally, for ourselves to be there. We motivate ourselves, we motivate others as well. But when it comes to recovery, I think this is one area, which where we tend to spend very less time. And when I think of recovery, I would say, again, referring to the author, what he has spoken is what he has, called out in his book. It breaks into two parts. One part of the recovery is, which is a day-to-day recovery. You're running your daily marathon, right? For that daily marathon, what is the recovery time that you're putting in? It could be a nice sleep, or it could be something beyond that as well, that will help you, again, disengaging from what you're doing, engaging into some other activity. Unfortunately, probably, I mean, I would not classify it as just Indians, but yeah, unfortunately, to some extent, we really don't spend a lot of time in hobbying, and uh, that's where our mental minds basically are able to disconnect and connect with something else. So yeah, in a nutshell, I mean, if I have to put it across, I would say what the author calls out really well, and I would just read a quote from here which I really like. What the author says: when I work, I relax. Doing nothing makes me tired, which resonates with me so much, because as I said, I love outdoors, I love physical things. And this is how I found this the best way to engage from what you do on a typical work day, and get engaged into some other activity. One of the things that he, again, calls out is, quit trying to reduce your stress. And this is a very generic and common habit we all have. We all run thinking that, this is pretty stressful, I just want to leave this and get into something else. So what the author says is, quit trying to reduce your stress. Instead, increase your capacity for stress, and use that stress. To do this, you must increase the frequency of recovery. So that is basically, the major part of recovery, I would say, that has resonated with me, from this book. Ultimately, end of the day. So thanks. This was all from my side.